Okay, welcome to most of your last class. You did it. You can look a little happy about it. It's okay. I know it's early, but this is a good day. It's a good day. All right. I'm gonna do a couple things today. I'm gonna briefly go over just like a couple of assignment pieces. I'm gonna spend most of the time talking through just kind of next steps and setting up the class and um, I'm also going to talk about some paperwork things that'll be important throughout the session, and and then question. If anybody has any questions about anything, we'll do that too. There's a couple of big things that everyone will be need to get on right away, and that is graduation. You need to sign up for graduation, which you can do online if you go to the Amberton site. One of the reasons why you want to do that pretty soon there was actually two big reasons. Number one, like there's a cap and gown. If you want to walk in the spring, you can. You get a cap and gown. You sign up for that as when you sign up, register for graduation. The second thing is that starts your transcript process too. So you can get your transcripts so that you can uh, fill out your application for licensure and get that associate license started quickly. And so you want to jump on that pretty quick. Everything can be done online, um, which is it's actually pretty simple to do. Um, the second thing that'll be important will be uh, that we have made a couple of changes to how we're doing our paperwork now. We're going to try this semester. We've never done this before. Um, on Moodle, online on Moodle, there is a link. It just says final paperwork new actually on it, and it is a PDF, but it's actually uh, it's fillable, so you can actually go in and type on there instead of having to print it out, fill it out, scan it, send it back. You can do it all. Just save it, save it to your desktop or whatever, save it to your files, and then you can actually fill it out. And every slot should be fillable, including all your hours. Like if you want to count, like there's forms on there for your hours. Um, I'm actually gonna show you this real quick because I wanted everybody to see it, just to kind of see what I'm talking about. Oh, let me get to the right spot. Here we go. And the reason why I'm kind of jumping to this fairly quickly is because I just want everybody to kind of see this before I go too much farther because this is kind of a big deal in terms of like paperwork that you're filling out. So here's the field supervisor evaluation. So this is one of the forms you'll turn into me. You also turn that into Dr. Johnson. So as you can see, this is all they can fill this out too. Everything's fillable, which is nice. And then here's a practicum counseling log. I'm assuming that most everyone started this by hand, I'm sure, which is fine. If you want to go back and fill it all in here, you can. Every one of these little cells you can type in too, which is nice. That way you can just save it for yourself. Also, when you turn that into me, it's a lot easier than it used to be. Used to be you have to print this out, fill it all out, scan it, then turn it in. This is going to make things a little bit easier, I think. We gave you quite a few of these logs here, just so you can have them. And then the last thing is the student evaluation. So the three things you're going to turn into me by the end of the semester are the supervisor evaluation, your evaluation of your practicum, and your hours log. And by hours log, I mean I want all the hours from practicum one and practicum two, not just practicum two. I want all of them. And if you're really super nice, you'll just total it all for me. That'd be awesome too. Otherwise, I'll total it. I'm going to talk about all this later too, because this is March 14th, and the last day of class is May 22nd. And for some reason, we mysteriously forget everything I've just said between now and then. So I will talk about this again, but I would encourage you just to get on Moodle and kind of look at this and just kind of play around with it. And you know, um, I always kept all my stuff on like an Excel spreadsheet. This is a lot easier because it's um, Anna Benton, who works with us, spent some time trying to kind of figure out how to do this for us a little bit easier, just so we could have it. So you can check that out. That's actually on Moodle. And so those are the actual forms I'll need from you by the end. The only other assignment that we have in this class is just a one-page reflection paper, and it's on Moodle. All this is on Moodle. It just says practicum reflection paper with just a couple of questions on there. But basically, you're just writing a one-page paper about your practicum experience. It's very simple, pretty straightforward. You can turn that in anytime between now and the end of the semester. Doesn't really matter to me when it is, but I would like to have all of those things by the end of week 9, which I believe is like May 14th, no, May 12th or something like that. Um, so I'd love to have all of it by then. And we're going to meet 4 more times actually between now and then. So I'll talk about this a little bit more with you as we go through. Okay. Does that all make sense? Hopefully. Okay. And someone's asking if we can, you can still use your Excel spreadsheet. If you have that, that's fine. Whatever you're using, you can still use. This is just new. We've just now started using it. I just wanted to show it to you, just so you can see it if you want to use it. If what you already have, is working for you, that's awesome. You can keep using it. Um, I actually did a spreadsheet for all of my licensure. I still have it actually. I kept everything that I ever turned in. So whatever works for you is fine. That's fine. So in terms of just like assignments, those are really the only assignments for the class. This is pretty low academic, high experience, right? So, by now, most of you, all of you, hopefully, have been gathering hours towards graduation, which is awesome. And so, what typically we do in this class, there's a couple of things that we kind of focus on. The first thing is, like I just mentioned, it's a little low academic, but it's pretty high on experience. So we're going to really focus on like next steps, like what it looks like when you leave the academic world that you've been in now for a little while. And now you're going to enter into the state licensure world, which is a different world, totally different. And we're going to talk about that throughout the semester. And just different things, different steps to take, and um, maybe some tips and tricks about, hey, here's what to think about, what to look at, and how to navigate that. It's actually much, much easier now to, get your associate license and get your regular license and renew. It's a lot easier now than it used to be, which is nice, but it'll be all new to everyone. So we'll go through some of those things. I'm going to show you hopefully today. I think I'll have time today. I'll show you the website that you'll need to go through and kind of look at, and I'll encourage you to kind of start jumping on that website and looking around in there and checking all those things out. So that's the first thing, just kind of that new world that you're going to be stepping into. The second part of the class is a little bit of talk of, hey, what does self-employment world look like? What does it look like to be in a private practice or own a practice, or because we don't talk about a lot of those things during the course of your training here at Amerton, like most programs don't talk about this. And so we'll talk about things like that and what that looks like. And that'll be something I think that, well, at least from my experience, I've been including that in this class for the last 5 or 6 years. People seem to like that, seem to really resonate with it. I've actually got a video. I don't know. I think I put it up. I haven't put it up yet. I'll put it up there today. I've got a video, an interview I did with a CPA friend of mine just about the self-employment world, which I think is super important and good to watch. I'll put that on Moodle and you can check that out too. But again, like I said, these are things we're going to talk about throughout the semester. And then really the other, I think I don't know, one of the biggest parts of this class, honestly, is just I'm going to try to be as good of a source of information for you as I can about all of these things, like any kind of next step and what's happening next. Um, and so we'll have plenty of time each class time to ask and answer questions. Um, I usually have former students come and talk about, what they did to study for the exam or how was it getting your license? And I mean, just different questions like that. I think Dr. Johnson usually tries to have people too. So we'll try to do that here as well. I've done that in the past, and that seems to go over really well. So that's in a nutshell what we're going to do here in the class. Now, typically we'll go for a couple of hours, uh, and that goes really fast. Um, uh, I just I just like to meet with everybody at the very beginning of the semester at least, and just kind of say hello and go through kind of the expectations of the class and what we're looking to do and how we're doing it. And so this class, like I said, is it's not there's not a lot of like you know uh, there's no exams, there's no papers, and this is the tail end of your experience. And so um, and we'll have people in here that have you know quite a few hours already, and some people that don't have very many at all. And so we'll talk about that too. That'll be important. So having said all of that, um, let me hang on a second. Let me get over here. All right, let me get to the right spot. I'm gonna get rid of some stuff here off my so I can see everybody better. There we go. Okay. Let me take a step back. I know I kind of just jumped in there. Um, but I just feel like I just kind of want to cut to the chase here a little bit today. Now let me take a step back and say, um, there's a couple of things I also want to know this morning. How many of you, and you can just like either raise your hand or indicate um, like by reaction. How many of you are LMFT? I think we have a couple few. 2, 3. Okay, good. So for the LMFT folks, obviously you have one more practicum to go. And so it doesn't change what we're going to do today or throughout the course of the semester. It will change just some timings for you. But what we do won't necessarily change in terms of what we're kind of focusing on. I mean, everyone already knows that LMFTs are better anyway, so we don't have to talk about that and harp on it or anything. Um, so uh, I just like to ask because usually there's a few LMFTs and mostly everyone's LPC, which is great too. If you want to be an LPC, that's fine. You can do that. That's good. We need both. That's good. Um, but I want to talk specifically today about a couple of expectations that I think will be important. But before I do that, what I'd love to do is I am a therapist too, and I still see clients. I actually see quite a few people every week. I'm very much a practicing clinician, and I teach and I love to connect people in my classes. And when we were met in person, we used to meet in person. This class used to be either in Garland or Frisco. Would be in Garland on one session and Frisco on the other, and you'd have to drive there. Believe it or not, we would back before COVID, we would all drive, and people would drive from all over the place, and we would meet together. And now, because of after COVID with Zoom, it's actually easier. You don't have to drive anywhere, which is kind of nice. But I still like to kind of get people together and talk, and so I'll do this periodically as we go through. Um, just kind of break everybody up into breakout rooms and just talk through a couple of things. And one of the things I would like for you guys to talk about this morning, there's a couple of specific things. The first thing is um, like introduce yourself. Now, some of you might know the other people here, some might not, because everyone's probably started the program at different times. And depending on where you are and what classes you took, you might not have been in person ever. So you might not have met people. So introduce yourself. And then the second thing is I'd love for you all to, if you have questions you want to ask about this class, about next steps, to generate those in your group together. I find that that's a little easier than saying, hey, does anybody have any questions, and opening it up for 20 people to just pop in. This will be a little bit easier to do this way. But I'll give you a few minutes to do that too, just to kind of introduce yourself and talk about, hey, here's some questions I have. Maybe these are immediately I need the answers right now, or maybe these are things we'd like to learn throughout the semester here. So I'd love for you to talk about those two things with each other. And like I said, I'll give you several minutes to do that, and then we'll come back and share some of those things with each other, and and then we'll kind of move forward with the class. Okay. So let me put this together. All right. You should see a little link to join your group. You should see it now. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the NCE and the CPCE are a little different. The NCE should actually be a little easier than the CPCE. Um, at least two of the people that have passed it are shaking their head if you can't see them. Um, that struggling with the CPCE is not uncommon for people. That does happen. Here's one thing to just think about. If you've already taken the exam and passed it, then you just block me out because you don't need this. If you haven't taken it and you're worried about it or thinking about it, in our academic career, we've gone into, most of us go into it thinking, I need to make an A. I need to make an A. I want to make an A. Getting a B is even like bad. Or if I get a C, I got to repeat the class. Like that's our thought about it academically, right? So every paper we write, every exam we take, everything we do is revolving around a good grade. The national exam is not like, don't think that at all. The national exam is pass fail, period. Okay? All you're trying to do is pass. If the passing mark is a seven, I'm just making these numbers up. If the passing mark for any given exam is 72 and you make a 73, it's like you made 100. It doesn't matter that you made a 73 and you passed. So think about the national exam, both the NCE and the LMFT national exam, both. Think about them as this is pass fail, not I have to master this. I have to get every question right. That's not that's not a good way to look at it, honestly. The best way to look at it is pass fail. I'm going to go in and pass this exam. I know the majority of the information. I'm going to be able to do fine on the exam. And I'm going to give you guys some tips and tricks, and then we've got people in here that have already taken it. So actually, since you've already taken it and passed it, everyone that raised your hand or spoke up, you're going to be the ones that are going to give us, help, because that's really important. Once you've already taken it, I think it's really helpful to kind of share with people, hey, how'd you study? What'd you do? What materials did you use? That type thing. And then just remember that this this exam is a pass fail thing, not a I need to make 100. Does that make sense? Hopefully for you.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And that's okay to be nervous about it and worried about it. And I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. It makes a ton of sense. There's a lot riding on the exam for sure. And it's not easy. It's hard, but it's not impossible. Okay. Any of you that have already taken it, am I missing anything? Anything you would like to add to that?
I asked the people that took it what study material you used.
I really liked, oh, go ahead.
Go
I
ahead.
was going to say the behavioral health pocket prep app was really useful for me.
I would agree with that and the purple book.
You can also get an Audible of the Purple Book, and so I would supplement that in addition to reading it.
I will say counter to that, and this is me, and it may be the way I learn. The Purple Book, I did nothing for me. I didn't even hardly dig into it. I bought it, and the way I read it the first few times, tried to look through it for the CPCE, and I was like, okay, this ain't for me. What's worked for me and every licensure I have or had to study for, I used. It's called yellow. It's like Miramax. It's on the NC Momentrix. Yes, I've used them, and I'm also I'm kind of a nerd anyway, so I listen a lot. I'm philosophy background, so I listen to a lot of and read a lot of just I like reading Jung and Freud and stuff, or listening to videos and explanations and understandings. So I consumed a lot of video content and lectures and podcasts. There's a kid named I call him a kid. He's probably in his 20s. He's on YouTube called. His name is Keegan. He's got quick videos. His work really well because they're very to the point and they're pointed, and they're like 5-minute videos explaining different topics. And he's got tons of them. And he's a young therapist, like just graduated. Not been doing it very long. So they're super cool coming from that perspective. And he does them for like 5 minutes. His videos really help me to get down, especially statistics, because math is not my strong suit. So I focused a lot in statistics for the exam to understand that better, because that's my background is really cruddy in that. But that's how I learn better. I do better I'm an auditory learner anyway, so videos do work for me better than just reading the content.
Anybody else? This is all good information. All of this is good information.
There are Facebook groups that'll be like LPC, studying for the NCE or LMFT, and you can join those groups and everybody shares resources and tips.
Yeah, there's also a lot of free like practice tests online that you can peruse through.
Anybody else? This is great.
I liked Monique's questions in the chat. I wonder if you can address any of those because I have them as well.
Yeah, I can. Does anybody have any other questions or comments about the national exam? Because we can move forward too. And like I said at the beginning, we're going to talk about all these things more than once. We're going to come back to them more than once. Let me talk about a couple of the questions. So how long does it take between applying for associate license and actually getting your license? That's a great question. I'm going to come back to that one because I'm going to show you the website that you're going to need to actually apply for your license, and it's actually going to have an answer for that. I'm going to do that here in like 5 minutes. This is a good question. If you're currently shadowing a supervisor for most of your direct hours, is shadowing still an option for direct hours as an LPCA? It is not an option. You have to do your own therapy with your own clients. My suggestion would always be for people getting their license, or even during your practicum. The reason why we have a practicum and we have 300 hours is for you to start getting experience working with people directly. That's the reason. So getting your shadowing people or doing, co-therapy even or things like that, or like to get your practicum experience hours is fine. There's even instances of co-therapy, like if you're an LPCA or LMFTA, there's instances of doing co-therapy that could work as well. But if you're shadowing someone, that's a little bit different. I understand that if you're getting your hours for practicum, that happens. That makes sense. But you really want to try to get your own clients. That's very important to you, not just for licensure. Just honestly, you need to start working with people. That can be the most helpful thing. Now, if you're having a problem getting your own clients at your site right now, let's say, then we need to talk about that too. I mean, that's important. Maybe it doesn't hurt you like to finish this practicum and finish your hours and all that stuff. That's fine. But let's talk a little bit about, hey, when I get my associate license, I probably need to find a site that can get me hours. That'll be important. Does that make sense? Hopefully, I'm hoping, and anybody in that group can speak up. If that doesn't answer the question, please let me know. I want to make sure I'm answering it.
That's super helpful.
Okay. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with shadowing people especially in your practicum. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's a lot of sites that start out all of their interns like that. That happens. That's not uncommon at all. But eventually you'd like to be seeing your own clients. I've worked with people in various different settings, pastorally, clinically, for almost 30 years, and meeting with someone in pastoral care, like I was in ministry before I did this, was very different for me than meeting with people clinically, like doing therapy. That was different. You're still meeting with people and you still interact with people, but the techniques, the modalities, the theories are very different. And learning how to use those, that's why you have a practicum. And honestly, that's why we have to gain so many hours, because we need to practice, and we need to supervise practice in order to do that. And so that's super helpful. Now I'm giving way too much information, but that's just, that's really important. In terms of restrictions on telehealth, that's a great question. There's been a little bit of, I think, confusion about telehealth. So I'm all virtual. Everything I do is virtual. I do not meet face to face with folks anymore, mainly because of the things I do. But telehealth, I think the telehealth question is a good question in terms of, does it affect you getting your hours for your LPCA or LMFTA? Most of that just depends on the site that you're at. You can get telehealth hours and get your license. That's not really a problem anymore. It kind of depends on where you're at. Most sites probably now have kind of gone back to face, but I do know of a few sites, at least in the DFW area, that are virtual, or some do both. Like a site that any of you are at right now might do both, or one or the other. And so virtual is always an option that you can do. That's not really a problem. And I've tried to keep up with, like, whatever laws might be coming down the pipe in terms of telehealth. There's not really been any movement there the last year or so. Uh, you know, Basically telehealth COVID kind of opened the floodgates and kind of let, insurance companies used to not pay for it. Now they do. Is that going to stay the same? I can't answer that question. I don't know if insurance companies will continue to do that. I do know that there's rumblings about Medicare they're going to stop doing telehealth visits for medical visits. I do know that that might be happening, but I don't know how that affects our behavioral health system. So some of these things are up in the air, but in terms of getting your hours virtually, you can do that. That's not really an issue. Um, and you can do supervision virtually as well. Some people do that, but the majority of people probably are still going to go the in-person route, both getting their hours with clients and with supervision, and that's fine too. Like I said, it honestly just depends on your site. Does that all make sense? Hopefully. Okay. Okay. The last question is, what are some best places to get training on specific modalities, which is another great question. It kind of depends on what modality you're thinking about. Pretty much every modality now has some type of certification process that you can find. Certainly the what you would think of is like, like CBT and DBT and EFT and IFS. I mean, I can think of, I don't know, 10 different modalities that probably have a specific training certification that you can do. I've had students in the past that have some certifications even before they graduate, which you can do now. And so if you really want to focus in on a modality, there's really two ways to do it. And we could talk more about this too as we go through. The first way to focus in on a modality is to read about it and understand its theoretical underpinnings. That's really important. And really, the second way to learn it is to do it, to use it. You cannot learn a modality by watching someone do it or hear someone talk about it. You have to start doing it yourself. You can watch people do it and hear people talk about it and watch videos about it. That's helpful, but nothing's more helpful than you being in a room doing it with someone. That's what really helps. And honestly, if you have a specific modality that you kind of like, which is pretty normal, people kind of gravitate towards something. It's really helpful to have a supervisor maybe that's trained in that modality or kind of maybe uses that modality that can help you as you're learning how to do it. Keep in mind that like most of the big, like the probably I'm going to say the most used models of therapy, there's like master therapists. You can go on YouTube and watch master therapists do sessions with those models, but keep in mind they're master therapists. They're not like they just started out. They make it look really easy. They make it look like anyone can do it, and you can. It just takes time and practice. Does that make sense? Hopefully, I don't want to discourage you from it. I'm just saying you got to learn about the model and then you have to practice it. That's really the best way to learn how to do it. And I'd encourage you to, try different ones. It's okay to try different models of therapy. I think that can be helpful for you. And eventually what happens for most of us is we start to kind of gravitate towards something that kind of resonates with us. And so those are all really, really good questions. So does that answer that question, hopefully?
Yeah,
Okay.
it does. I mean, my biggest concern was not paying a lot of money for a website that said you're going to get certified in something and then you're not actually getting certified in it, or they aren't a reputable website, and how to discern between the two.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, Yeah. I mean, most of your CEU training companies like PESI and Zur Institute, and there's probably one or two other ones. Those are probably the most popular, and they're going to have the most up-to-date trainings, and they're going to have people that are at this point, most models that we're just now talking about, the people that created them are probably not living anymore, but they've trained the next generation of people. Maybe DBT is an exception to that, but so as close as you can get to the original person, right? That like if you're doing training with someone that was trained by the originator, let's say EFT, like Sue Johnson. If Sue Johnson passed away a few years ago, but she trained a really good group of folks that have since trained other people. Like the closer you can get to the kind of founder of the model, the better. CBT is the exception because CBT's been around for 80 years. I mean, that's you can't get close to that. But most of these models you can get pretty close to. And so you do want to do your research, and honestly, you'll get what you pay for. If you want to really get a really good training, it's going to be pretty expensive. It's not going to be cheap. It won't be like $200 and here you go. It's going to be $2,000 or $3,000 probably, and usually goes in stages for the most part. Like Gottman, if you do a Gottman level 1, 2, and 3, EFT is the same, IFS is the same. I mean, there's different different levels of that you can do. And again, like I said, you know, you can read through. I think Derek had a good point about, like he was studying for the exam. If you know you're visual and you watch, videos can help you, that's great. That's awesome. I would just encourage you to also follow it up with doing like practicing as well. That's really what's important too. If that makes sense, hopefully. Yeah, good question. And that's a great question because that question gets asked every class, every Prac II class. And it makes a ton of sense because you're kind of like about to be on your own. So yeah, you want to kind of know what you want to do. Let me just throw this out at you real quick. If we look at outcome studies, at how people do in terms of change and growth in therapy, the model of therapy
Does not matter.
does not matter at all. What matters is how sold out you are to the model. So we have 20 people here. If we had 20 different models, everybody did a different model with the same client,
It would
in
work.
theory, it would work every time.
If they're committed to it.
Every time. So the model, it is important. It's important. But what's more important is your commitment to the model. That's important. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Yeah. Good. Okay. I got another question here. Yeah, someone's raising their hand somewhere. I don't see where. Oh, Karina. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I put the question in the chat too.
You're asking about hours per week of supervision.
Yeah.
So you do supervision every week when you're LPCA or LMFTA. So you do weekly supervision because you have to have X amount of hours of supervision for your license, right? And so yeah, so you meet weekly with your supervisor. So that's important. Also, you don't have to be certified in a modality to practice the modality. It doesn't, let me talk about certifications just real quick, like just in general speaking. Certifications aren't licensures, right? They're not governed by the state. Like anyone can be certified in almost anything, but you can't say you're certified in something unless you actually are. In other words, you can't portray yourself as I'm Chris Bedard PLLC and I'm certified in whatever unless I actually am. Like you can't say that. You could say I'm a practicing blank whatever, but you can't say I'm certified in whatever those things are. Does that make sense? That's kind of important too. How you designate yourself from here moving forward is very important. Right now, your students. So designating yourself as an LPC or LMFTA would not be correct. Right? You're actually student interns right now. Now, when you get your associate license, then you'll be an LPC associate or an LMFT associate. That's what you could say. But you couldn't say you're an LPC or an LMFT until you actually are. Does that make sense? Now, why would I bring that up? Because that's actually happened, and it's actually happened at Amerton a couple of times. And those folks were not able to get their license as a result of that. So you can't portray yourself as something that you're not. I mean, it's pretty common sense and it's very black and white ethically. But I like to I just want to throw that out. That's just very important. The last thing I would like to see happen to any student is you don't get your license even before you get a chance to get your license. Like you just don't want to do things that are going to get you ethically in a bind. That's all. Now, having said that, you know, that doesn't, I mean, that's pretty rare. I mean, most like 99.9% of the people are, you know, just trying to get your license and move forward. You know, it doesn't happen where you're, trying to bend the rules all the way around and everything. But you just can't represent yourself as something that you're not. That's really the biggest thing. And that's true for now on. Like I'm an LMFT. I can't represent myself as an LPC. I couldn't say I'm an LPC because I'm not. I'm an LMFT. And so that's true for everybody from here on. And the crazy part about it is your clients don't know the difference. They have no idea what those letters mean. They have no clue at all, unless you tell them. And even if you do tell them, they still don't. Most of the time, don't care. They just want help, basically. Okay.
Dr. Bedard, I have a quick question about our hours log.
Mhm.
We receive hours for this class and for the other one. Do we need to record those on our
Yes.
practicum log? We do?
Yep.
Okay. And then I have completed an internship, but it went during the break, and that
Yep.
internship, they evaluated me. Do I need to submit another evaluation for the 2 week gap for this
No.
class? Okay. Just I have a second internship, and that evaluation will count for this
Right.
course.
Is it a different site?
Yeah, different sites. So I've switched sites,
Okay.
and so but I had I had that gap overlap between the end of I worked the previous site in the 2 week gap between
Okay.
class.
Do me a favor, send me an email. And actually, if any of you have changed sites between Practicum 1 and now, if any of you have changed sites, please send me an email
Okay.
with that. And I'm going to send that to Mary Jane Hall. She does all of our site visits, and she'll just need to know that you switched. It's not a big deal if you've switched sites. I just need to know, and I'll pass that along to her.
Okay. I had sent the paperwork in to Dr. Johnson, but I couldn't start until the break. So I've just kind of this gap of hours. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. You just have to send that. We have to send something to Mary Jane because she'll now call that new site, not the old site.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Hey, Teresa.
Hi, I have switched sites as well because I went on so do I just, and that previous site paperwork was submitted during the term,
right?
During the time that it was completed. Everything is done. Do I still need to transfer all those hours onto this new form that you're asking, or is that whole packet just transferred to you, or do you want me to email that whole package evaluation and everything to you with the hours?
No,
How would you like that?
all I need to know is if anyone's changed sites, that you have a different site in Practicum 2 than you had in Practicum 1. I just need to know that. All of your hours collections, everyone, is the same. You're not going to change how you collect your hours. Right? I just need to know if you change sites because Mary Jane does our site call visits with all the supervisors. And she just needs to know if you've changed. That's all. And so if you'll just send me that email and I'll forward that to her. just give me the site and the supervisor's name, and then she'll 9 times out of 10 she kind of knows the folks that are there anyway. But I just need that information. I don't need anything from Practicum One. Like if you already anything you've already turned in from Practicum One in terms of evaluations, I don't need that. The only thing that I need at the very end is all of your hours from the time you started until the time you stop. That's all I need at the very, very end.
And
Dr. Bernard, I'm sorry.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
I do have a question about that. Now, I talked to Dr. Johnson about it, but I just want to verify. I am leaving. Well, my site was my work basically. So I worked for Mesquite ISD, and I worked in a behavior unit, and so my supervisor works with me, and she is going to continue to be my supervisor after graduation. She's an LPCS. And so she supervised me through Prac One. But I am moving. I took a position with the state as a behavior specialist, behavior interventionist, whatever you want to call it, for Department of Health and Human Services. I'm moving 5 hours away. She is still going to be my supervisor for that, because that position is a behavior position. They're behavior analysts that work there and such, most of them all. I told Dr. Johnson about it, and he said it was fine, but like I said, I just want to make sure I'm clear. So I need to turn in that job, that will be my site from here on out, and post-grad site as well.
Yep.
But the contact would still be my supervisor, correct?
Right.
But I still need to turn in the site, right?
That's right.
Okay, cool. I'll send you an email then. Thank you.
Yep. Yep. Any other questions about any of those things? Great questions.
yeah, I added an additional site, but my main site's still the same one that I had before. Will I need to do an evaluation for both sites, or just the main site and then turn in my hours for both?
Turn your hours in for both. Where usually you do the evaluation where you are the most, or where you got the most hours most of the time.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me just say one thing. It's 10 o'clock. If anyone needs to jump off, you can. I'll stay on as long as you guys need if you have other questions. This first time is kind of introductory, and I don't want to, I told you it was going to be an hour, so I want to respect your time. If you need to jump off, great. If you want to have more questions, I'll stick around for another few minutes. And so don't feel bad if you jump off. I just want to throw that out there. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I have one real quick.
Yep.
Turning in the evaluation and the hours for the last practicum, I did not insert the class hours.
Okay.
How do I do that? What is that supposed to look like on the log sheet? Is that administrative?
It's administrative non-direct hours. So
Non-direct?
you get 40 hours per class. So you get 80 total.
So just put one entry in there, 40 hours. Okay.
For Practicum One. And you can just signify Practicum One, non-direct, whatever, administrative, 40 hours, Practicum Two, non-direct administrative, 40 hours.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Any other questions?
I do. I have a question. I'm just trying to get a better understanding, because I'm working on finding a supervisor for after graduation, like once I get to be an LPCA. And I'm trying to figure out, I'm talking to 3 different people and wanting to figure out how I'm going to structure my work after graduation. So the question is, if I run my own groups, like I have, I rent a space somewhere and I run my groups and I'm supervised by someone, because one of the people that I'm interested in working with, she doesn't provide a site and she doesn't provide the clients. Like I would have to come up with the clients and the site, and she would just supervise my work. So if she is in insurance panels and she works insurance, how would that work? Like, can I see, because I know I cannot see insurance clients as an LPCA.
Right.
So would I have it to how would I structure that? If I want to work, can I do that or not?
So the short answer, Karina, is that's between you and the supervisor that you work with. That's the short answer.
Okay.
Okay. Because when this is just information for everybody, when you're an LPC or an LMFTA, you're practicing underneath the umbrella of your supervisor's license, not your own license. Okay.
Yep.
So anything that you do practice wise needs to go through and discussed with your supervisor. That's the first thing. In other words, if you say, I'm going to see, I'm seeing 20 clients a week, whatever, and my supervisor knows, but I start a group and it's off to the side, but my supervisor doesn't know, which I know that's not what you said, but I'm just saying you have to do everything you do goes through your supervisor. So the short answer is discuss that with your supervisor first, whichever one you choose, and let them know, hey, here's what I'm thinking about doing. Here's what my plan is, and let them know that. That's the first thing. Because you're entering into a different kind of space where, you do have a little bit more freedom to as an LPCA to do different things. That's true for sure. You have a little bit more freedom, but you also need to remember that you're working underneath the license of your supervisor. So whatever they kind of feel comfortable with is probably okay. If they don't feel comfortable with what you're thinking, you might want to get a different supervisor. And supervisors kind of look at things, differently. The other thing I would say about
Yeah, that's what I'm
supervisors,
trying to figure out is like
yeah,
there's different things, that different pros to working with each of these three people I've been
correct,
speaking with. And I'm
correct.
trying to figure out which model is gonna give me the most learning and which model is gonna give me, a reasonable amount of money for the time that I'm gonna be putting in there too.
Sure, sure. Well, there's no reason that says you have to do one way or another. I mean, if something doesn't work, you change it. I had 3 or 4 different supervisors my whole time, just based on where I lived, and sometimes I moved, or sometimes I was going a different direction. I mean, that's not really a problem. But
Also, it's not a big deal to switch supervisors like during
it's
your
not
LPCA
it's
training.
not it's not always easy, but you can do it. That's all. You can do that. It's just not always like super easy to do that. But when you start talking to supervisors that you might work with, you can interview. They're going to interview you, so you can interview them too, and just kind of ask questions like, you know, what's your style, and how much do you charge, and what is your, how many people are you supervising, or how long have you done it? I mean, you can ask basic questions like that. That would be very important. And it sounds like just based on what you're saying right now, with like a 3-minute conversation, it sounds to me like you have something fairly specific in your head that you would like to do or try. So the more specific you can be with them about it, the better.
Yeah. Well, this lady, I've known her for like 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
I know how she works, and I think she would be a great supervisor. She's been a supervisor since, at least then, when I already, when I met her. But she shut down her practice during COVID. So now she's like, I'm still offering supervision, but I'm not, she's seeing people online from her house.
Yeah.
So she doesn't offer clients, and she doesn't offer a place where to work. So that's that's my hesitancy on working with her. That's why I'm trying to come up with, okay, how would this work?
Well, how it would work is you have to find your own clients. That's how that would work. Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to figure out, because I don't want to do a lot of the legwork of having to, answer people and schedule and all the stuff that comes with finding your own clients and running your own thing.
Sure.
Where I come up with, like, there's this place where I have a potential site that I can use, and I can see, and I can see people and I have a physical space where I can see them, but they are mostly insurance referrals. A community center that someone I know runs. So that's why I'm just trying to put the puzzle pieces together to see if this, has a leg to stand
Yeah.
on.
Well, the good news is, Karina, you have about 10 or 12 weeks to figure it all out.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have time to think about it. Yeah. It sounds like you're thinking about it really well. I mean, you just have to think about, the pros and cons of each way. Sounds like to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good that you find. I think it's good that you have options in terms of supervision, because sometimes it's hard to find people. So that's good that you have that already. That's good.
Yeah, the other two people, I don't know them as well as I know this lady.
Mm-hmm.
This lady, I've known her,
Yeah.
for 12 years. The other two people, I met them within the last year.
Yeah.
So there's that, comfort level, someone you've known forever and you know how they work.
Yeah.
And you can learn from,
Right.
versus someone that has all these credentials and that look great,
Yeah.
but you haven't seen them in action that much. You don't know
Right.
behind the credentials.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know,
sure. Yeah.
that's kind
100%.
of what I'm trying to
Yeah.
wait.
Well, that's good that like I said, it's good that you kind of have some options and just
Mhm.
kind of think through it. That's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And really quick, I don't want to take up that much time, but my question regarding the certifications were because, I'm interested, for instance, DBT is one of the things that I feel very comfortable with. And I've been looking at certifications. It's like you take a class and it says, like I took classes from PESI, and it says, okay, but remember, this certification is not enough. You always make sure you go and get more training to be working under, within your scope of practice. You don't want to have, and then I've been listening to some of the ACA, little things they do once a month for like legal aid and making sure you're working within the limits of your license and you don't do anything that's going to get you in trouble with the board and all that, just to kind of keep informed. And they are very stringent about, making sure that you're not doing anything that you're not, trained to do, properly trained, enough trained, or whatever words, and I'm like, okay, how do I know if whatever classes I grab off of PESI are enough to say, I don't call myself certified because I can't even get certified through those classes until I have my full license. But I say, I'm a practicum student and I use DBT tools. I use DBT tools in my practice.
Yeah.
I don't, and I just don't know whether it is, it can get me in a legal bind to say that same thing once I'm an LPCA. Like, can I call
Well,
myself, and I'm a therapist that uses DBT, the DBT approach, or that uses DBT tools in working with my clients?
yeah,
Is
that
there?
I think, yeah, that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You're not doing anything wrong. You can, you just can't say you're certified in something unless you are. That's
Mhm.
all. That's all that means. I mean, you can get training in anything. Anyone here can get training in any form of therapy. And not every training is a certification. Like there's plenty of trainings on PESI that aren't certifications. They're just basic information, or give you just enough. The reason why they're telling you to go further is because they're not giving you a full training. They're only giving you like, a 3 hour class or something like that. That's not really enough for a training. So it doesn't sound like you're doing anything ethically wrong based on what you're talking about. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anybody else have any other questions?
I do regarding a secondary site. So the beginning, I took on a second site during practicum one, but I did not turn in any forms for that. Dr. Johnson just wanted the evaluation and the hours from one site. So I know you said add them all together, but do you want to keep it separate on the log so one site versus the other? Because I don't really want to put it all on one log and have one supervisor sign off on hours that they weren't a part of.
Well, you can't have, yeah, you might need to keep it separate for each
Okay.
site, but you can, it sounds like do you still have two sites?
Yes.
Yeah. So you'll keep them separate, but you'll turn
Okay.
everything into me, like the two separate,
Right.
however many forms you
So
have.
should I do the field supervisor evaluation for both sites?
How many are you going to be there equally?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there about equally on both.
Yeah, you'll probably just do both then.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And send me, if Mary Jane doesn't know about both sites, that's what I would need to know too.
And she does.
Okay.
I took on the second site during practicum one, and she was
Perfect.
aware.
Perfect. That's perfect. Yeah. Everyone just make sure you're turning in every single hour you've done at the end. Whether you started at one site and switched to another one or added another site, it doesn't matter. I want all the hours. You want to get credit for every single hour that you've done. Yeah. Good. Any other questions?
I have one question about, do you know anybody in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that does advanced groups or skills training in motivational interviewing?
I don't know anyone, but I'm sure you can find somebody. That's pretty popular.
Yeah. I did the foundational course with Dr. Miller, but what they say after that foundations course is you just need to get in groups and practice these skills over and over and over and over. And it's hard to find groups that do that. So
Well, did they say what kind of groups?
motivational interviewing advanced groups, like where it's like as practitioners, you're practicing in group. Because like part of the course is, you meet with other people in the course and they give you these exercises, practice this,
Yeah.
practice this over and over. But they said, you've learned it, but what we found in the research is people who learn it and then don't keep practicing it to advance their skills don't end up using it with the clients. And so that's what I'm trying to find is a local group that does that.
So they did all this initial training, but didn't give you resources to find a group to do this with.
Well, so there's a list of people who do it. I live in Austin and I reached out to Austin, but he's like, no, we don't really have a group that does that. So it was a little challenging so that's why I was just curious if you knew.
Like when you're saying group, do you mean like client groups? Like this would be a group of clients, or this is a group of people learning how to do
that are practicing it together?
Oh, that's weird. Just start doing it with clients. That's what I would say. You got to
Yeah.
practice it with people. I mean, I'm not saying don't find groups and to help you, to support you. I mean, it's very common for a training program of any kind to have a group component and a supervision component that goes with it too, like to be certified. But you still have to use it on. Like if you have a basic, sounds like you have a foundational basic understanding of motivational interviewing, what you got, right? Did you get interventions and techniques along with that, like you could use now?
Yeah, definitely.
If you want to really challenge yourself, then
using it with clients for sure is absolutely, I'm able to do that, but to actually get better at it, they said the way to get better at it is to do it with other practitioners so that you can be improving one another as you're practicing it together. Because if you just do it with clients, then you're stuck with what you have, with where you are. Whereas like if you're doing it in a group you're going to be able to build one another up by bringing in other ways to think about it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know about groups. I don't know that. My assumption would be you could find them. The person that you reached out to, do they know of any other places or?
I didn't get any other places from him. So yeah, I definitely can keep reaching out to more people on that list. I was just curious if you were aware of him.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't know. That's super fascinating what they're telling you.
And it really was very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I got better as I was in practice groups because I saw how it was done in new ways. And so it definitely was helpful.
No, it should be helpful. The training piece should be helpful. Yes, 100%. Yeah. I mean, if you really want to practice motivational interviewing, try to work with mandated clients, or try to work with uh, um, let's see, behaviorally challenged teenagers, or any client that doesn't think they need something, but they're made to go do that, whatever that thing is. That's what you practice on. And the reason why you do groups along the way is in those groups, like if this was a group, let's say, and we practice with each other, you would also be able to say, hey, I'm doing this with the client, like whatever you're practicing. Can I get any helpful hints? And here's what we've tried, right? That's the reason why they're saying that. Basically, they're saying that group becomes kind of like supervision for you, like kind of helps you develop your skills, so that you can get better at them. That's what that sounds like to me based on what you're saying. You might have to start your own group, which you can do. It sounds like to me it doesn't have to be like it could just be any kind of group of folks that are trying to get better at motivational interviewing. That's what it sounds like. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't have to be like an official group.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely a possibility. And I've got a group of people that are very interested in starting a group. I was just kind of looking for somebody who's maybe more advanced than I am to be able to help facilitate leading that. Reaching out, like, do you know anybody that already has this going, or, has a lot of experience with it?
No. I had to learn all of it on my own. Motivational interviewing I used a long time ago, and I've used it ever since. But I got someone gave me 2 books and said, go read these books, and that's what we did. That's what we used to do.
They give you like 0.5% of what motivational interviewing is in the MA program. And then taking the foundation course, I realized, wow, I now just have a very, very, very basic knowledge of it. And then I read like the books that were like this big, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to take so long to just get really good at using these skills. So yeah.
Oh, that's true for anything. Yeah, it takes time.
Yeah.
It just takes time. You're probably doing a lot better than you think you are.
I don't know about that.
I mean, think about where you were this time last year before you knew much about it. You probably have progressed pretty far.
Yeah.
I mean, progress when you're learning like a model of therapy or like a theory that applies to something, progress is measured in years, not days, right? So you measure progress like, this time last year, I didn't really know anything or whatever, and then this time next year, here's how much I know. And it does happen where you do get a plateau effect too. When you're learning something new, there's a plateau. You do get a plateau. And then that's when you like find another challenge that kind of, pushes you over that plateau, like maybe a different kind of client, maybe, or something. Does that make sense? Like something like that, that kind of pushes that next level of skill, maybe, that you need. And that sounds like what the groups are for. So it sounds like maybe if you just find someone that is like fully trained in MI, that maybe that's what you need potentially more than anything. That's what it sounds like. Which I would think that if you did a training, they'd have a list of some of those folks.
Yeah, I'm reaching out to that. But I was just gonna see if you have anybody in the area.
I don't. It's not, that's not the popular thing right now. DBT is more popular. I mean, all these other modalities are a little more popular, and that's fine. It's just it is what it is. But motivational interviewing is super, super, super helpful.
And I think it applies to so many types of just ways of conversing with people
Uh-huh.
in the face of ambivalence about change. So yeah.
100%. Well, it's really nice to watch people start with someone that will maybe even think that there's nothing wrong, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh shoot, maybe this is what I need to do. I mean, that's pretty cool, because that's what it does basically. Yeah, yeah. If I hear of anything, I'll let you know, but I cannot think of anything
Okay.
off the top of my head. Yeah, it's a good question though. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? All right. Now you guys can go do something else. Like, I don't know, go take a nap, or it's nice today. It's not windy. There's dust everywhere, but if you're in DFW, maybe you're not. Is anybody outside DFW? I know, Karen, you said you're in Austin. Monica, you are. Where are you?
In St. Louis, actually.
Oh, in St. Louis. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're
But
way
I
out.
work out of a site in Austin virtually, so
Oh, okay, cool. Where do you work?
yeah. Enhancing intimacy.
Who do you work with?
Jill is my supervisor, and I work with Claudia Thompson as well. Jill Robertson and Claudia Thompson.
Cool. You like it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I really like it.
Good. Yeah,
A lot
that's
of good
good.
couples hours. So
Yeah, well, that's what you need.
yeah.
You gotta have them. Yeah, good. Good deal. All right. Everybody can go do something else, and I think we meet again maybe in a couple of weeks. And let me tell you for sure. Let's see. It's like we meet in April, like the middle of April, like the 12th or something like that. Yeah. We'll see you then. I'll be around if you guys have questions. I'm here. You can always send me a message. Other than that, have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you.